Ronald Acuña has lots of fun playing baseball. The only problem? Fun isn't allowed in baseball. Bat flips, big celebrations, gold chains, diamond-studded chains, chains of himself. Ronald isn't afraid to let a little personality out on the diamond. And what's the harm? These sorts of displays, you might think, are mostly innocent, and inject a much-needed element of excitement into the game. But not everybody sees it that way. Throughout his short career, Ronald's unique style has drawn censure from his very own organization, goaded opposing pitchers into bench-clearing brawls, angered announcers into saying he deserves to be hit by pitches, forced fans to fight in the stands, and even ignited a seething feud with a superstar teammate. Lest you be fooled, Ronald Acuña is ruining baseball. So let's settle this once and for all. Is baseball's brightest young star stomping all over the sport's time-honored traditions and revered code of sportsmanship? Or is he simply being himself, busting through outdated nonsense while re-energizing the game for a younger generation? In La Sabana, Venezuela, baseball is a celebration. It's not unusual to hear drums and music accompanying the crack of a bat and the murmurs of an engaged crowd. For a young Ronald Acuña Jr., a ball game was an occasion to come together with friends and family to have a good time. Before you get the wrong idea though, the whimsical approach to baseball on offer in this humble suburb of Caracas does not mean the game isn't taken seriously. To the contrary, La Sabana has more major leaguers per capita than pretty much anywhere else. Ronald's uncle, as well as 4 of his cousins, played or play in the major leagues. His dad, Ronald Acuña Sr., while never making it all the way through to the show, played 8 seasons in the minors as an outfielder. Due to this impressive baseball lineage, Ronald had the best of both worlds, a love for the game and the support system around him to teach him how to turn passion into a profession. Ronald Sr. instilled in his son a workmanlike approach to the game, emphasizing lifting weights and showing up for the daily grind of practice. The joy of smashing a monster home run or stealing a base, he quickly learned, was made sweeter by the countless days of hard work which led up to it. This relentlessness paid off handsomely for the young Acuña, as he signed a $100,000 international free agent deal with the Atlanta Braves in 2014. Making his professional debut in the Gulf Coast League, the lowest rung of the minor league ladder, Ronald, to even the untrained eye, had something a bit different from the other 18 or 19-year-old prospects hoping to make a name for themselves out in the Florida sun. Despite the extreme discipline with which the teenager approached baseball, he couldn't forget where it all started. Whenever he stepped out onto the outfield grass, his mind whooshed back to his memories as a 5-year-old, at his family's annual softball game. The wafting scent of sizzling arepas and the booming bass of Latin music on the loudspeaker, watching his older relatives and begging to play a bit himself. With this in mind, having a bit of fun out there was only natural for Ronald, and even if his flashiness rubbed people the wrong way, they were far too astounded to let him know it. He catapulted through the Braves minor league system, dominating at each and every level. In 2017, he won Minor League Player of the Year, slashing a ridiculous 325 average with 21 homers, 82 RBIs, and 44 stolen bases. By the 2018 season, he was ranked the #1 prospect in the game, and his call-up to the majors was only a matter of time. Baseball is an international sport, but there are of course cultural differences. In America, young ball players are often taught to approach it with reverence and a solemn, serious demeanor. That being said, the one universal language is crushing a fastball over the opposite field fence. And unlike English, Ronald spoke that fluently. During spring training in 2018, Ronald got his first taste of the backlash which his signature style would command in the at times stifling setting of the major leagues. While adjusting to big league pitching and receiving mentorship from Atlanta legend Andruw Jones, he was reportedly called out by the Braves organization for wearing his hat incorrectly. While to the casual observer he may have sported his cap slightly askew, maybe imperceptibly so, to the Braves brass this was a major no-no. According to the Braves' unique uniform policy, players are required to wear their hats straight forward and with the signature A clearly visible at all times. In the words of Braves manager Brian Snitker, Doing so was out of respect for the Hall of Famers that put a lot into the organization, who certainly always wore their hats the proper way. While Ronald complied and the hat controversy resolved itself largely without issue, this little incident would form a marker for things to come. After finally receiving his call up to the big leagues in April of 2018, Ronald set the league on fire, mashing home runs from the leadoff spot as the youngest player in the majors. Opposing teams, it turns out, didn't appreciate the early success of the exuberant 20-year-old. In an August series against the Marlins, Ronald homered in his first at-bat in each of the first 3 games of the series, and was looking to become only the second player to do so in 4 straight. Unfortunately, Marlins pitcher Jose Urena had other ideas, plunking the rookie in his elbow with the first pitch of the game. The Braves' NL East rival wanted to let Ronald know he had broken a clear unwritten rule: never show up a more established player. When Atlanta met Miami again just a week later, the young star hit yet another home run, and this time followed it with an emphatic bat flip and a slow trot around the bases. In return, the Marlins threw at him once again. This, it seemed, was going to be an ongoing conflict. After winning NL Rookie of the Year, Ronald picked up where he left off in 2019, and now he was starting to attract even more attention, and no longer just from Marlins pitching. During a live game broadcast of an away series in Pittsburgh, Pirates announcer Steve Blass, himself a former MLB pitcher, reacted to Ronald taking a close pitch inside by insinuating that the 21-year-old had it coming. "I was getting ready to say, Blass started. With a young player doing all that stuff and all the jewelry and all that stuff, back in the day, I'm not saying it's right or wrong." While Blass wasn't saying it was right or wrong per se, the subtext was clear. In his era, the jewelry and all the stuff, it wouldn't have flied. The Braves won the game, but baseball, or at least a faction of it, wasn't prepared to accept the sparkling swagger of its newest superstar. Ronald didn't stop wearing his jewelry, nor did he stop destroying Miami pitching. In the first game of the NLDS against the Marlins at the end of the COVID-shortened 2020 season, he led off Game 1 with a towering second-deck home run, flipped his bat, and took his customary hit-by-pitch from Sandy Alcantara his next time up. He was used to it by now, this whole routine. What he wasn't used to was internal conflict within the Braves clubhouse. Ronald's antics, it turned out, had spawned tension with his own teammates. Specifically, more established players who broke into the majors at a different time didn't much appreciate the lack of decorum Ronald seemed to show. Team veterans, in particular multi-time All-Star Freddie Freeman, responded at first by trying to force him in line. During Ronald's rookie year, unnamed veteran players apparently wiped his eye black off in the clubhouse. Freeman specifically saw himself as entrusted with the task of enforcing team rules. When you put on a Braves uniform in that organization, there's organization rules, the first baseman said. You don't cover the A with sunglasses, you don't wear earrings, you have your hair a certain length, you wear a uniform during BP, you don't have eye black coming down across your whole face. As an unproven rookie, Ronald had little right to complain. But as he grew into an all-star, silver slugger, and MVP candidate, he became less willing to tolerate what he saw as arbitrary standards. By the time Freeman left Atlanta for the Dodgers, their relationship had soured. When asked what he'd miss most about Freeman, Ronald responded curtly. "Nothing," he said. Moreover, he added, the two teammates had had several clashes during their time playing together. Though both sides downplayed the conflict in the media later on, this statement, even with the excuse of being lost in translation, was hard to misinterpret. Ronald didn't like being told what to do. His message? Good riddance. Ronald lost much of his 2021 season to a devastating ACL injury, and spent 2022 rehabbing and returning to form. What looked to be a quiet offseason before the 2023 season turned out to be anything but. In fact, it included the wildest episode yet. While playing in the final of the Venezuelan Winter League, Ronald launched a huge home run, and followed it up with a characteristic celebration. Characteristic may be an understatement. Even for Ronald, this was another level. Just when you thought it was over, it kept on going. Fans of the opposing team, outraged by what they saw as utter disrespect for the game, started booing loudly in the superstar's next at-bat. Things got so bad that some especially unruly fans got into it with members of the Acuña family, an altercation which resulted in food as well as several punches being thrown. Ronald promptly retired from the Venezuelan Winter League in the aftermath. Maybe this time he had taken it too far. Despite the fallout, Ronald continues to be unapologetically himself out on the baseball field. He has even become increasingly willing recently to challenge some of baseball's more deeply cherished rules. In a recent game against, of course, the Pirates, he got into it with Pittsburgh pitcher Johan Oviedo. The at-bat started with Oviedo throwing 2 pitches well inside. After a strike, bringing the count to 2-1, he threw yet another sizzler up and in. This time, Ronald took exception. He stared down his nemesis in a cold show of bravado. Oviedo didn't like that, and the two started jawing. This escalated to shouting. Oviedo stepped forward off the mound, Ronald responded by exiting the batter's box, and pretty soon the benches had cleared. Oviedo, in an interview afterwards, asserted that he had done absolutely nothing wrong. Throwing inside was part of the game, and if that wasn't allowed anymore, baseball had gone soft. Ronald, though, didn't care. He didn't like being pitched to like that, and he was going to let everybody know. This leads us back to the central question. What's the deal with Ronald Acuña? He's certainly changing the game, that's for sure. But does his unique bluster on the baseball diamond help or harm the sport? On one hand, his individuality and self-expression brings with it a fun, exciting energy that many believe baseball has been missing. However, his antics can at times challenge established norms of the game that are arguably core to the pastime fans know and love. The issue is more complicated than meets the eye, and different people might come to different conclusions. That being said, he's one of the best players in baseball, and he looks unlikely to stop anytime soon. No matter how you feel, you might just have to come to terms with it.